Hey guys, it's Quinn, and today we will be taking a look at the greatest action sequences in the history of the James Bond franchise. 007 films from Dr. No in 1962 to Craig's final outing in No Time to Die have been made famous by their incredible action sequences, throwing Bond into unique circumstances with creative gadgets, beautiful locations, and a whole host of various obstacles to overcome. Through films and periods, these action sequences have evolved. However, all Bond films have had their share of great action sequences. Which ones stand above the rest? Today's list will answer this very question. Specifically, however, we will be taking a look at great action sequences. Therefore, though the iconic car flip in The Man with the Golden Gun was certainly an amazing stunt, it is only that, a stunt, and therefore is not eligible for this list. Similarly, there are otherwise great scenes which are made even better due to the bits of action spliced in them. For instance, the opening sequence of GoldenEye is a 10-minute long saga ripe with stunts, character development, important deaths, and of course, Bond running down a runway to safety to end the entire opening. Though maybe it's the best overall sequence in the entire series, the opening of GoldenEye is not a pure action sequence, and therefore is not also eligible. Nope, today we're taking a look at pure action as we rank the top 10 greatest James Bond action scenes worst to best. Number 10, Bond vs. Oddjob, Goldfinger. Starting off this list is the iconic climatic fight from the most famous Bond film of all time, 1964's Goldfinger. This action scene has it all, an absurdly over-the-top set design in the form of the inside of Fort Knox, Kentucky, an unstoppable villain in the form of Oddjob, Sean Connery getting his ass kicked for several minutes straight, only for Bond to overcome it all with the clever use of his surroundings. And of course, the bomb inside, stopping on 7 seconds, never hurts. The scene might be a little bit slower in style than other sequences on this list, but the overall design of the scene makes it just crack our top 10. Number 9, the stairwell fight from No Time to Die. The effective swan song fight for Daniel Craig's Bond, this scene cracks our top 10 due to its stylistic nature. This is not the first time we've had a staircase fight even in the Daniel Craig era, but the use of one single shot to catch the entirety of the fight was a brilliant way to show just how great of an agent Bond truly is, and his ability to win fights in many different ways. We just wish the scene was, a little bit longer, for this action sequence is truly unique in the series. Number 8, Bond vs. Necros, The Living Daylights. A personal favorite of mine, this action sequence is brilliant because it is just incredibly chaotic and therefore unpredictable. The fight is on a plane, with a bomb in it, flown by an individual who seemingly goes out of her way to try to crash it the entire time. Then on a flimsy net, with a knife involved, and then the net gets torn apart almost immediately. The stakes in this scene, as I just said, they're every second just increasing, making this one of the most tense action sequences of the whole series, and the most memorable part of an otherwise outstanding first Bond film for Timothy Dalton. Number 7, the final shootout in The Man with the Golden Gun. In an otherwise honestly pretty boring film, the final shootout between Bond and the Man with the Golden Gun himself, Scaramanga, played by the brilliant Christopher Lee, delivers an incredibly exciting game of cat and mouse between the two assassins, as they literally duel to the death. Completely unpredictable, backed by a fantastic musical score, which sort of builds the tension gradually throughout the sequence. The scene shows the skills of these two men, and ends the sequence with an awesome display of how Bond is both skillful, but extremely tactful in his actions. Though it's a brutal road to get there, the final duel shootout is a standout not only in this film, but for the entire Roger Moore era. Number 6, Bond vs. Grant from Rush with Love. One of the greatest fights ever in the otherwise niche train fight category in film history, Bond vs. Red Grant is the first truly great fight in the entire Bond franchise, and for good reason. As a precursor of future fights, such as the previously mentioned Bond vs. Scaramanga fight in The Man with the Golden Gun, wherein Bond has to fight an equal, what makes this fight so exciting is that it presents two men at the top of their game. The fight is brutal. The claustrophobic yet simple atmosphere of the train makes the fight feel real and strategic, and the creativity used by both individuals throughout the fight is thrilling. This movie is all about espionage, so to pair it with such an exciting action sequence makes the stakes in this sequence feel all the more high. Number 5, the Skyfall opening sequence. Unlike other Bond opening sequences, which at least have some sort of downtime to weave in plot, the opening of Skyfall is an action sequence from beginning to end. Multiple different set pieces, from a motorcycle chase to a crane, onto a train, to a shootout, to the train itself. The scene snowballs into a shocking conclusion where Bond actually loses. It's as exciting as it is shocking and sets the tone for one of the great Bond films of all time. Number 4, the Archive and Tank sequence from GoldenEye. Very similar to the Skyfall opening sequence, what is great about this Archive and Tank scene in GoldenEye is it is no holds bar action for a solid 10 to 15 minutes. Taking advantage of wonderful set designs and scenarios, allowing Bond to use an array of strategies, and including many of the main characters in the film itself, this stretch of film is Bond at its absolute best. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the helicopter scene, which immediately precedes this scene, though we technically have a minute of dialogue between these two scenes, so I'll be true to my word and keep them separate. Regardless, this scene is a great interlude before we reach the finale of this film, which, spoiler, is even grander in scale to this awesome sequence. Number 3, parkour opening Casino Royale. After the end of the Brosnan era, the producers had to ground Bond again, make him gritty again, and re-establish the character as, well, a badass in his own merits. The solution, the opening parkour sequence in Casino Royale, every bit as violent and continual as the Archive and Tank sequence of GoldenEye, but distinct in its use of crazy stunts and just sheer brutality to reestablish the character as a true badass. Taken outside of the realm of the Bond universe as a pure action sequence, this is about as good of an action sequence as we will ever get in a Bond film. However, 2 more beat this sequence just due to pure iconic status. Number 2, the ski sequence in The Spy Who Loved Me. Incredibly cheesy, hilarious, but also unbelievably impressive in its stunt work, the opening sequence of The Spy Who Loved Me is everything we love about the Bond franchise. It is downright unbelievable skiing, paired with a perfect musical score, and to top it all off, maybe the most iconic stunt in the franchise's history with the parachuting to end the sequence. It's quintessential Bond in its purest form, and rejuvenated a franchise which felt like it was beginning to lose its footing. Before we reveal our number 1 overall pick, time now for a few honorable Number 1, 007 vs. 006, GoldenEye. Everything we want in a Bond sequence is here. Bond dropping 006 to his death is probably the most iconic moment in the Brosnan era. Like Bond vs. Red Grant in From Russia with Love, Bond is fighting an equal here. Like in the parkour scene in Casino Royale, the fight is truly brutal in nature. Like the Skyfall opening scene, the action scene goes on forever as the 2 former friends go toe-to-toe with all of their skills at their disposal. Set up by the explosion of a mere pen and ending with the explosion of an entire satellite system, the 007 vs. 006 sequence brings together all of the greatness of our previous selections, earning it the distinction of the greatest action scene in James Bond history. So what's your favorite action sequence in the entire series? Did I leave out certain selections that you guys really loved and thought that I just completely neglected unfairly? If so, let me know in the comments section below, and as always, like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.